Hey everyone, it's Maddie. I am doing this live at 6 a.m. in Iceland. So hello from Iceland. I'm gonna get through as many of these questions as possible before I have to head to the airport. So thank you so much for dropping such great questions for this Q&A in the group. I'm really excited to dig into these. I'm not gonna be able to get to all of them probably because there's so many. So I'll have to do a round two of this Q&A, but I'm stoked. And there were a few questions that I would love to do a whole future live video on because there's big, massive topics. So I'm gonna just jump in and get through as many of your guys' questions as possible. Thanks so much for asking for the great questions. Sorry, I look really tired. I'm headed to the airport, but I wanted to answer these for you guys. So excuse the large bags under my eyes right now. But so first question was from Reese, and he asked what kind of is my personal story? How did I get into photography in the first place? Which is a great question. So I have been taking photos, I guess, coming up on 15 years or so now. I just kind of grew up in the digital, budding digital photography age. My dad was an engineer, and he was kind of into buying new gadgets and new toys. And so I ended up getting, when my parents got a digital camera, it just kind of became mine. It was just in my hands all the time. I am actually a massive, massive introvert. I spent most of my childhood outside alone, playing by myself outside because it was just peaceful to me. I had kind of a rough go at it growing up. And so, I liked just being outside alone. It was a safer place for me than being inside my house a lot of times. So I used photography as a creative outlet, and I took 1,000 pictures of icicles and sunsets and my poodle and flowers, and that is what made me really happy growing up, was just spending hours and hours and hours doing that outside. And I never thought that I wanted to take portraits of people. I was a landscape photographer at 14, very pretentious. And but then I kind of later in high school, one of my friends, she had this idea one day. She's like, why don't we take my homecoming dress into the forest and let's just take photos of me in my homecoming dress? I was like, okay, sure. So we went, and I lived kind of near a big open space, and we just hiked into the forest, and we took some photos of her, and I took some photos of her in her homecoming dress. And I could see mountain views from this open space because I grew up in Colorado. And I remember a really particular moment where the sun was setting, she was in her homecoming dress, and she was spinning around, and her dress was flowing. And then there's this backlit mountain in the background. And I remember taking a photo that I literally was squealing behind my camera. And I've just never been so happy in my life until that point. And now looking back, I'm okay, I know clearly why I enjoyed that. But that was my first experience with it. And I very distinctly remember that moment. That was a light bulb moment for me, for sure. Just okay, I really like this, having people in the landscape thing. There's something really, really magical about this. I want to do more of this. So I photographed all of my friends, senior portraits in high school, and was kind of known as the photographer of my high school. And took a few my teacher's family photos and those kind of things. And then one of my teacher's daughters was getting married, and they weren't even really going to have a photographer. And my teacher just asked me one day, hey, you want to photograph their wedding? You can. And so I did. I think they offered to pay me $500, which I thought was a ton of money for being 16. And I mean, it was, for being 16, a lot of money. And so I photographed it, and I had the time of my life. And looking back at those images now, I'd probably cringe, but there's slight tilt to some of those. And but I absolutely loved it. And I just kind of dove right in. It didn't occur to me to not just start shooting weddings. I mean, I'd been taking photos for a long time at that point. I already developed an eye for it, and I had worked on gear. Anything that I had made in a shoot, I reinvested into gear pretty much immediately so that I could have the equipment that I needed. And so Yeah, so I started shooting weddings like 16, 17, and then graduated high school. And then I took like this detour. I did not think that photography was a viable career for me at all. I thought it was like a pipe dream to become a wedding photographer, like kind of like wanting to become a rock star or something. I was like, oh my gosh, no, that's like for the elite only. Um, and that's not for me. I'm not outgoing enough. I mean, I can't even explain how painfully shy like I naturally am. Sitting here and like doing videos and teaching people, and like the like semi extroverted personality that may come across online is like something I've worked really hard on, because it is not naturally me at all. Really, really not. I'm like no, super nerd, no friends in high school. I graduated valedictorian. I was like president of the honor society, like yearbook editor, just like super overachiever nerd. That was me. I got a full academic ride to college. And so it never occurred to me to study art with that degree. I studied engineering in college. Like I said, super nerd. Everyone in my family is an architect, doctor, lawyer, engineer. And so like I thought, okay, I'm great at math and science, and like that's like the most sensible career option. So that's what I did. I studied engineering, and I loved engineering. Like I love math and I love nerding out about stuff. And I liked kind of being like only the 10 to 15% of women in engineering, and just kind of like kicking their asses with my math knowledge. And had a great time. Pulled so many all-nighters finishing physics projects and engineering projects. And but what I realized is that I had this like also like raging creative side when I was in college that was not being fed, not being served by my engineering degree, and that I was feeling like kind of starved and suffocated by it, just the way that engineering is taught in the US. And so one like Christmas break, I just finished finals, and I just remember feeling like so drained. And so I, did like another funny like artist thing, and I called like a few of my friends and was like, I have to get someone in front of my camera. I feel like I'm dying. And so I did a few like really strange like conceptual shoots right that Christmas break, and it made me so much happier. I feel like I could breathe again, and it was like me, and I was just like more happy doing those shoots than I was in engineering. And I decided, I realized like I didn't want the day-to-day life of being an engineer. Like I could do it. I had a 4.0 in engineering, and I dropped out of engineering. I switched and I did a marketing degree, and it was like a huge identity crisis. And I, was really worried that I would regret it. But honestly, it's probably one of the best choices I ever made. Looking back at it, was to switch over and do marketing, because it took a lot less effort than my engineering degree. And so while like I was shooting weddings throughout the summer, while I was an engineer, because it's like really hard in the fall semester, like shooting on top of being a full-time student, maintaining like an academic standing in engineering. And so when I switched over to marketing, the like workload was way less, and I decided, I think that if I put 100% of my effort and energies like into my business, like maybe I can make this work out. And so I did, and I switched over to marketing, and I just decided to like nerd out about business and marketing, and like, how does this little puzzle work? Like, how do you get people to find you? How do you build a brand? Just like, it was a fascinating concept for me to sink my teeth into as like a nerd, and just to strategize and analyze all of it. Like marketing is such an interesting puzzle. Like every business, every brand, every target market is different, and it's just this really fun little thing. It's not a one size fits all like engineering isn't either. It's like problem solving, and I love it. And so it was a huge shift, but I had so much more free time on my hands. And so every single thing that I was learning in marketing, I turned around and could apply it immediately to my business right away. And I just like sunk my teeth in, and soaked up everything that I learned in every single one of my marketing classes. I did like 100-page like market research plan for my business as part of my honors thesis in college, which like in conjunction with a few other things that were happening in my life was like how I decided to specialize in elopements. So I was like studying marketing, working on this market research, like digging into like hundreds of pages of market research reports in the wedding industry. And I was seeing trends, and I was seeing like, okay, things are like trending like smaller and like less traditional. Like I can see these trends of all these market research reports. But more importantly, around the same time, I had the chance to photograph my first elopement. So throughout college, I was photographing some weddings in the summer, 5, 7, 13. And then I got hired to photograph my first elopement around the same time that I was finishing my last year of my marketing degree. And that was another like pivot point for me as a photographer. It was another like game changing, like light bulb moment, like feeling like that squealing behind my camera, like ultimate happiness. I like this couple had come from Texas and hired me about like 2 weeks before, which is funny. It's like so many Texans like go to Colorado to elope. And they said something really interesting to me that was super new as like a traditional wedding photographer. I'd only photographed big weddings up to that point. They said, hey, we don't really, we want to go to Reclamation National Park, but we don't really know where. Like, can you help us find a spot? And, like we haven't been there before, but like you're Colorado and you find us a good spot. Like you're a photographer, you can figure it out. And I was like, oh my God, I get to pick the place, you elope? That's amazing. Like I can pick the most awesome place. Like, why not? And so I scouted around, and it was my first location scouting for an elopement. And I had done some like adventures and engagement shoots at that point. I like loved hiking and being outside. Like nature is like where I feel like that can breathe the most, I think, just the most like happy and peaceful. And so I, found the most beautiful spot for them, and they showed up. And that day, like I will never forget that day. It was like, it was kind of cloudy and foggy, and it was just like my favorite weather, it would be in Colorado where it's sunny almost every day. And I like that day was just like pure bliss and pure joy. And this couple was so free to be themselves, and it was just such a stark contrast to everything that I had experienced in the big wedding industry. It was really life-changing for me when I realized like this was the first wedding that I've ever been a part of that feels like a wedding day that I would want to have someday. And I didn't realize until I was photographing my first elopement that there's something like a deep disconnect with me and with big weddings and the big wedding industry. And I didn't realize that I loved working with couples who were in love. I could handle like the stress and the timelines. Like that wasn't the issue. The issue was like the heart and the feeling and like the family stuff around big weddings. I grew up in a violent alcoholic home. And I'm not close to my family at all. It's like estranged from them for a couple of years now, to just kind of like protect myself from that toxicity. And you didn't realize that every single time I was photographing a big wedding and seeing a father-daughter dance, seeing a bride walk his daughter down the aisle, seeing a really sweet toast from a parent to the child, and those like, big weddings being like saturated by family stuff. And I didn't realize that it was like a little bit of a sting, a little bit of a stab, a little bit of like, I can never have that. That could never be me. That's like not a wedding experience that I can relate to, because that's not what my life looks like. And I'm kind of doing this on my own. And so I didn't realize how much that hurt until I had an elopement, and that element was removed, and it was just the couple in this beautiful environment, like in one of the places that makes me feel so alive and so safe and so peaceful. And it was just them two. And, despite my assumptions, like in the beginning, it wasn't sad. It wasn't like lonely. It wasn't like, oh, lame, no one's here to support you. It was them. And oh my God, that day was amazing. Like it still like moves me, because it was so magical to see a couple, even with like they don't have 100 people standing around them saying like, this is right. Like you can get married, commit your lives to each other. Like it didn't matter to this couple. It was like them against the world of just like, we're in this together, me and you. I'm going to commit my life to you, you know, this moment right here is all that matters, because our relationship is private and is no one else's business, and is like my promises I'm making to you are going to be fulfilled and kept by me alone for the rest of my life. You know, I don't need 100 other people standing up hearing me say these words for them to mean something. And oh my God, I love elopements so much. And you know, they were so safe and free to be themselves. And like, there are a lot of people that have complicated families in the world. And that's what I, you know, realize every day as an elopement photographer. It's one of the main reasons that couples elope. Not the only reason, of course, but it is one of the big ones. And it's just, even if you have a great family, if there's just that kind of twinge of, you know, of like disapproval or judgment in any kind of way, that, you know, on the day that you get married and you want to stand up there and you want to say words from the heart that commit your life to your partner, if there's like those lingering feelings of judgment, of like, I'm not good enough, of, you know, people aren't, you know, I'm not being seen, and I don't feel like completely safe to be myself, like I don't really want those feelings near that moment personally. And I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way, but it is a hard choice to make. It is a brave decision to say, like, I don't want that influence, like, on the day that I get married. Like, this day is for us, not about that. Like, I can deal with that later. And so that's just one of my like biggest driving factors for elopements, is like, I want as many couples as possible to feel safe and feel free to make that decision, because it's so incredibly powerful. Like, the contrast is stark between what a traditional wedding looks like and what an elopement looks like as a person getting married, as a photographer, you know, anyone. They are life-changing. I am not anti big wedding at all. I know that I can kind of be a little bit brash about big weddings sometimes, but it's what I'm anti is couples feeling that they need to be forced into doing something that they don't want on their wedding day. That is what I'm against. If a big wedding is like 100% authentically you, and you do everything that you want on your wedding day, awesome, like, kudos, you rock. And, you know, I just think there's a lot of couples that feel really pressured and forced, and that those decisions that they're making around who's coming to their wedding day, and then how that's affecting the rest of their whole experience, affecting what they say in their vows even, you know, that's not being fully thought through, and that's not really fully what they want. And, you know, as there's a lot of big wedding photographers in this group, I'm sure you've heard, oh, I just can't wait for this day to be over. Like, it's so stressful. Like, I just want to be married to you. Like, you know, this thing has just become this out of control circus that's not about us anymore. And we've gotten lost in it. And, you know, heard couples after the wedding say, I don't even remember it. Like, I didn't get to see or talk to anyone that I really thought I was gonna be able to spend time with. Like, the people I invited that I wanted to see, like, didn't see me. And I spent time like rubbing shoulders with my parents' work friends, and I don't even remember the day. And we didn't have a moment together alone. It was exhausting. And, you know, if I did all over again, I would elope. And so, you know, I have never heard someone say, I regret eloping. That I haven't heard. I mean, maybe someone has, but I haven't heard that personally. And so, yeah, that's how I got into elopements. And so when I photographed that first elopement, and it changed my life, you know, coming from this marketing strategy side, it was like this perfect marriage of like strategy and nerding out about like, how do I make this work, and this like fiery passion for like wanting to make it happen, and deciding like, I only want to work with eloping couples. Like, these are my people. These are the people that I was made to serve as a photographer. And like, I don't want to do anything else. Like, if I tank, I tank. Like, I'm all in at this point. Just like, I want to make this happen. And so I did like a very strategic rebrand of my business that year in 2015, and use that, you know, using the marketing tools and strategies and like the marketing channels and the rebrand, and like some like really creative curation, I pivoted my business entirely immediately, within like a month or two after photographing this first elopement. And booked 30 elopements the following year, my first full-time season from this first elopement, and was able, like, pivoted immediately. And so my my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, when I told him, like, oh yeah, so like I know I'm about to graduate college and go full-time and support myself on this business, and guess what, like I'm narrowing my market like to this much, and I think it's a good plan. He's like, this is a terrible plan. That is a bad decision. And that isn't going to work. He thought I was crazy. And I'm really glad that I did listen to him. And I listened to like everything I learned in school, which is, niches and being a specialist, and, and finding that one thing that you are incredibly passionate about, that your unique talents align with, and then coming up with a specific strategy to go hardcore after a segment of the market versus like a big watered down generic brand that's like trying to please everyone, which sadly, like, that's not possible anyway, but you can really delight a small amount of people if you find the right people. And I'm really glad that I ignored him and that I did it anyway, because it was the best decision. And there was not full-time elopement photographers back in 2015. There was a couple of people who were doing elopements, but not like doing it full time. It was not really a thing. And so I was like, why isn't it a thing? Why can't it be a thing? Why can't why can't I photograph only elopements? And also, why are elopements only this 2-hour crap? Like, I need to figure out a way to tell couples that their day is worth more, that they are worth more, that because like their wedding, in my mind, is like the most amazing way to get married. And it's not this like cheaping out, like, you're skipping out on the planning, you don't care as much about it. It's like, no, you guys have found the best way to get married possible. And I think there's just so much opportunity here to help couples see that, like, man, like, I want to tell the whole story of your day. Like, why wouldn't a couple who's eloping, like, deserve the same level of documentation of their day? Like, their day is more awesome, in my opinion. And so that's kind of where like the all day elopement thing came from, was just being like, why not? And let's see if, I can, get a couple who like sees this vision that I see about how valuable their elopement day is and how cool it would be to tell the whole story, even if it's just them. Like, who cares if it's just them? Like, that's even better. And so that was a super long answer of how I got into elopements. Someone else asked, like, how did I know elopements and intimate weddings were for me as opposed to larger weddings, which I feel like I've just answered. I'm going to have to do a second part of this Q&A, guys. So, and then let's see. Best sources of advertising. Are Google AdWords worth it? How do your clients find you? From the research that I've done, and from like all the tests and like market research that I've done in my own business, in this specific like adventurous elopement market, I can tell you 4 marketing channels that are worth it as an elopement photographer. Number 1, SEO. SEO game should be strong, like super where it's at. Number 2, Instagram, which yawn, I know, like the algorithm sucks, but there's still ways to be really successful on the platform, to get real inquiries for the platform, because likes and followers like don't mean crap if you can't get inquiries. Like, inquiries are all that I care about from the Instagram platform. The likes and followers are a byproduct of it. I am not an extrovert. I hated the idea of starting an Instagram account. I like delayed starting one for a very long time because I didn't want to post selfies or be this like person that I saw other people being on Instagram. And so when I figured out, hey, I don't need to talk about myself, I can talk about elopements and like how passionate I am about them, and like other people are like, cool, like I agree with that, like we're connecting on this like deeper why level, not just a like person to person level. And that is how I've grown my Instagram account organically, is through that, and through like strategically engaging with people. And I see Instagram as like a tool, and it's like this fun game of a strategy, not something that is sorry, not something that is like a personal expression of myself. It is a tool for my business and my brand, and like you know, getting the message of how amazing elopements are out there. And so I don't take really anything that goes down on Instagram personally. I see it as a business tool, and that's how I like the strategy around Instagram is all like pretty thought through. And then Pinterest is up and coming hugely. It's a great tool for couples, especially who are planning their own weddings, which is like typically like smaller, and elopements. And like as elopements become more popular, as more people plan elopements, Pinterest is going to be like continuing to be this like rising marketing tool. And then four, if you need a paid strategy, because these three take some time to build up organically. Absolute hands down best paid strategy for advertising for elopements is Facebook ads. You're not going to find anything else out there that has a higher return on investment for Facebook ads, but properly set up Facebook ads, because the majority of people do not set up Facebook ads correctly. Like, you know, pro tip, like don't just put a photo and like some words and have it linked to your homepage and run that to an audience. And, you know, with the aim of people finding your homepage and contacting you, will not work. Absolutely, that's just throwing your money down the drain. If you've done that with Facebook ads and felt like you've been putting your money down the drain, like I get it. That's what I did when I first started doing Facebook ads, and it's like, why isn't this working? Because it doesn't. Like Facebook ads, you can't do that for a multi-$1,000 service. That's just not how it works. That's like, I don't even know what to compare that to. It's like, would you see a Facebook ad for a service that you would pay thousands of dollars for, and through like clicking on one ad be like, yeah, I'm all about this? No, that's like not how it works. You have to like warm people up over time and like show them the value that you create and create brand awareness. And it's this slow like, oh yeah, I think I've heard of this person. And like, you know, it's this warm up process with Facebook ads, bottom line. But, and so those are the four like best sources of advertising for sure. If you can only do one, do SEO, hands down. So, biggest misconception around elopements, around elopement photography or elopements in general. Oh man, there's so many misconceptions, but the one that's on the top of my mind, because I heard someone else say it the other day, is that elopements are selfish. And I get that. And I hear and I see where that misconception comes from. And because one of the hands down biggest reason that couples elope and that I hear over and over and over again from all the couples that I work with and the inquiries that I see come through, are like, we want a day that is just about us. Which, yes, like that is a, you know, selfish statement. I'm a person who doesn't believe like selfishness is inherently bad. I think that it is, you know, knowing what you want and making a decision around, you know, a lifestyle that, you know, and being who you want to be. Like every person is selfish, and like every person should be selfish. Oops. And I'm gonna turn my alarm off, guys. Sorry. Every person is selfish. Every person should be selfish. The thing that is funny to me is that, are big weddings selfish? Are they more or less selfish than an elopement? Is it more selfish to ask 150 other people to travel from all over the states or all over the world, wherever they come from, to come to your day, to, you know, buy special clothes, to like bring you a gift, to sign up for your registry, to help pay for your honeymoon, or whatever that is? Is it selfish to ask, you know, 6 of your best friends to buy a $500 bridesmaid dress and do all the things that come with supporting someone having a huge wedding? Is it selfish to, you know, have your parents contribute $20,000, $30,000 to you spending one day at a party? Is that selfish? I just think it's interesting that people like automatically like put that word onto elopements, when my opinion personally, I think it's much less selfish to elope, to be able to say, hey, like we're getting married and this day is about us. Like we love you guys. Like, you know, we want you to be able to be involved and celebrate with us. And there's so many different creative ways to do that, even if you elope. But you know, like you don't need to go out of your way to like make this huge party and production for us. We don't need to be the center of attention here. Like, we're going to go on an adventure that really suits us. and, have an experience that is really true to us and authentic to us. And, so, I don't think elopements are selfish. I mean, and if they are, then that's fine. That's good. Certainly feels less selfish than a lot of the things that come around with a big wedding. So that misconception kind of like mind boggles me a little bit sometimes. But what are the biggest mistakes that you see photographers making constantly, whether it be in photo, composition wise, and business, marketing, and client experience? Oh man, yeah, there's several big ones like popping up to my mind there. I'd say one of the biggest ones though that underlies a lot of issues of being a service provider, being a photographer, and how you market is a really big misconception and myth, and of the assumption that our clients are photographers. We assume a level of knowledge that is definitely not there, and we assume a level of expertise that isn't there. And what I mean by that is when photographers market to couples, there's a lot of myopic marketing going on, which is a marketing term, which essentially means you as the service provider, as the expert, go into your marketing, you have all this knowledge in your head. You have been a photographer for a long time. You've been to a ton of elopements. You've been to a ton of weddings. You have all this experience, and it's really easy and normal and natural to assume that the person you're talking to and marketing to has that same level of knowledge. It's really easy. It's hard to put yourself in someone's shoes who's coming at this from a totally new perspective, who's never done this before, who those little things that you think are so obvious and no brainers of like the booking process and how elopements work and how photography works. You think that would be a no-brainer to everyone because you've known that for years. And it's really easy to make your marketing too dense and too complicated, to scare clients off, to be scared off by clients who are asking questions about something that they've never done before. And I see it all the time in Facebook groups of like a client asking a really legitimate question and then photographers saying, run, run, run. Oh my gosh, they're asking you a question. And yes, of course, there are red flags with couples. I think you shouldn't take on every single client who inquires with you. But I think that photographers just need to remember that like their couples have never done this before. They don't know what's okay and not okay to ask about. They don't know what they should be asking. They're looking for advice. Like people who really care about elopement photography are going to do research, are going to be asking questions, are going to like want to know that the investment they're making with you is worth it, especially if you're a higher priced photographer. And so questions are good, in my opinion. And, so it affects the marketing, it affects the client experience. It affects, people thinking that their images alone are going to be what makes them stand out and are going to be what makes a client pick them over another photographer. And the thing to understand is like, again, our clients, they're not photographers. They're not professional photographers. They don't sit online and stare at images the way that we do. They can't tell those like minute differences between this person's preset and that person's tones. And, oh my God, what lens did you use? Your bokeh is so creamy. Like clients don't see that. Like, yes, of course, like they can tell the difference between a really inexperienced photographer and an experienced one. You can tell the difference between a poor quality photo and a good photo. But with so many good photos out there, so many great photos out there, so many potentially award-winning photos out there, very talented photographers at that level, like how do couples pick between photographers? Like, yes, there are little stylistic differences here and there, but to someone who is new to this, who's looking at elopement photos and wedding photos for the first time, are they going to notice those differences? Are those going to be the game-changing decision-making factor? No, they are not. It's like asking me, here are like 8, $7,000 violins, and I'm going to play them all for you, and you're going to tell me which one's the best. I'm like, I don't freaking know. Like, they all sound pretty great to me. Like, how the heck am I supposed to make this decision? They're all the same price. They all sound the same to me. They all sound good. I have no idea. And I think like we are assuming a level of expertise and like photography expertise and knowledge that is just not there in a lot of our couples, and it is affecting how photographers market, themselves, how they like work with couples. And, you know, marketing, bottom line, like one of the biggest things, there's so many things with marketing, but one of the biggest things is to step out of your role as a service provider and step yourself into the shoes of the person that you're providing a service for. And it's hard mental exercise to do it. It's probably one of the most powerful ways to like reframe how you talk about what you do, how you communicate about what you do, how you explain your value, how you explain how things work, how you break things down simply for a couple and make it easy for them to understand, help them trust you. And really, it's about being an educator and, you know, so assuming a level of expertise and knowledge from a couple, like Donald Miller, his book, like Building a Story Brand, is probably one of my all-time favorite marketing books ever. And he has this like quote that's like, he says like, you know, don't like have like the curse of knowledge, which I think that like curse of knowledge piece is a huge, huge issue with photographers and their marketing, is they have all of this knowledge and all of this expertise, and it keeps them from marketing themselves effectively because they assume that everyone else that they're marketing to has that same knowledge and expertise. So yeah, that's a huge, huge one. So cool. Let's keep going down the questions. So and a question about how I do like sneak peeks and blog posts, how that works in the workflow. So eloping couples love sneak peeks. Oftentimes, like they use those images to tell people for the first time that they eloped. Like that's even more exciting than sneak peeks for big weddings where, you know, there's a whole bunch of people already there. This is like maybe the first, like imagine seeing the first photos of like your family member or your best friend on their elopement day. Like that's the sneak peek that you're sending to a couple. That's who the audience is for that. And so, it's always with customer service, under promise, over deliver. So I promise sneak peeks within 1 week. I promise like 3 to 5 bangers. And then I, you know, in like three to 4 days maximum, depending on like my travel schedule and how many elopements I'm shooting, as quick as I can, essentially, deliver about like 7 to 10 of my favorite shots throughout the day. And not just, you know, the Instagram bangers, but the ones that will like mean the most to them, and the ones that will mean the most to the people that they're showing them to. And those moments that they thought were the most fun, and they're gonna like enjoy looking at this for a couple of weeks until like their full gallery is ready. So and I deliver them in a PicTime gallery, full resolution, you know, the whole 9. Like those are completely usable photos for an elopement announcement, for whatever they want them for. I don't use social media for sneak peeks at all. Like I don't post on, very rarely have ever posted a photo on social media that I hadn't delivered to a couple prior, like, because for elopements, there's a lot of times like maybe they haven't told someone yet, you know, I always deliver it to them first. And then it can go on my Instagram later. Instagram is a marketing tool. It is not a deliverable to a couple. It's a pretty useless sneak peek. They can't, you know, download that image and use it. And so I have found like that makes eloping couples super happy, and they share the gallery around and people like love it. So, and then blog post wise, so it's the same thing. So the blog post for me happens after I deliver their full elopement gallery. As a client, putting myself in a client's shoes, if I was waiting on my full gallery of photos and I saw a photographer publish like a really long blog of all my elopement photos before I had received my gallery, I'd feel a little bit like, wait, come on now, like, can I have those? You know, like I'm waiting. And so delivery for me happens first, and then the blog post can happen. Like blogging is marketing. It's not a deliverable to my couples. So that is, you know, what I've thought through of like putting myself in the shoes of someone who's eloping and like what's going to give them the best experience. And it works just fine for marketing. I can tell you that fine too. So how many photos do I deliver? So less than when I did big weddings. So big weddings, I feel like I was averaging like, I don't know, maybe around 600-ish images per big wedding for like a normal standard 8-hour day. That was like kind of round about where I was. And when I started photographing all day elopements, it, you know, just due to how like really relaxed the timeline is, it's not this like, go, 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 like, you know, photograph this and this and this and this and like cram like, you know, 3 hours worth of stuff into an hour. It's like 3 hours of stuff in 3 hours, in like a normal day, not a crazy day. And so the pace of it is slower. And so it ends up like, end up like curating, like when you curate the same amount of a slower pace day, you end up with less images, especially if the day is involving like a lot of hiking. Like I'm not photographing every single second that we're on a hike. I take a lot of photos when I hike, behind the scenes and the scenery and the couple and from above them on the trail and below them on the trail and XYZ. But you end up with a different amount of images. So we promise like 300 images from an 8-hour elopement. And we are more around like the 400 mark usually for an all day elopement. It's, you know, it can be more if it's a 2-day elopement. It can be, you know, it's less if it's a 4-hour elopement. I think, yeah, we promise like 150 for a 4-hour elopement, normally deliver around 200, 250. I think curation of a gallery really matters. Like less is more. You know, imagine it from a couple's perspective, where if you open your gallery and every single image that you see like blows you away, you look amazing and your partner looks amazing. And, you know, what are you going to think about yourself when you open that gallery? You think like, damn, like I look good. And this, you know, I am great at taking photos and I feel great about myself. And this photographer is amazing. Like every single image I am blown away by. Like those, you take a certain amount of those images per wedding day, per elopement, like a certain amount of those quality of photos happen. But it's your choice as a photographer, whether you're going to deliver just those really good ones that are going to really delight your couple, or because of analysis paralysis and decision paralysis, are you going to like double that amount of images and mix them in with like not quite as good versions of those? And how does that overall like lower the quality of the whole gallery? And how does that affect how that person feels when they open it, when they scroll through the photos? Are they seeing, you know, like, oh, you know, my eyes half closed in that one, I mean, he looks good, but oh yeah, and this other one, like, oh, you know, he was kind of like talking, and so like, you know, why was I delivered that? And so really like less is more. Curation is, and like culling things is one of like the hardest things as a photographer. I get it, it's like an emotional process, and you know, we want to give it all. But really like delivering the best of the best, and like having the work that you deliver to your couples, the work that you put online, be just as good as it can possibly be, and not like being fearful and like diluting those great shots with mediocre shots, is huge, as it's absolutely huge as a photographer. So curate, cull stuff. Like you know, there is, you know, we've never had an issue with someone saying like, we don't deliver enough images. Like you're getting like 400 images. That's so much for like a normal human being. Like when we, you know, we say how many images we take in an elopement, how many they're going to be delivered, they're like, oh my God, that's so much. It must take forever. And I know photographers who deliver like 1,200 photos from a wedding day. And I'm thinking like, that's too much personally. So, cool. What's been the best marketing I've invested in aside from website and SEO? That would be Instagram for sure. Like I mentioned, that's like definitely the second best marketing tool out there for elopement photographers. And again, it is a marketing tool, and there's so many like creative strategies around Instagram, and it doesn't have to be this like daily drag of feeling bad about the algorithm. And the algorithm is very simple. Like weirdly, the Instagram algorithm fits us, functions sort of similarly to SEO in the sense that it is like the purpose of Instagram is to keep people on the app for as long as possible. They want you addicted to Instagram so they can show you more ads. That's how Instagram works. And so everything that the Instagram algorithm does is designed to keep people on the app. And how do you keep people on the app? You show them things that they're interested in, that they like, that they enjoy, that makes them keep scrolling because they're having a good time. And so Instagram is trying to figure out what everyone wants to see, which is why they got rid of the chronological feed. It's why it's never coming back. Sorry, because it doesn't fit their business model. It doesn't, like a chronological feed, if someone comes across a post that doesn't apply to them, like they're more likely to like switch off to another app. And so Instagram is constantly figuring out like, how do I show people content that's gonna make them stay on the app? So it's trying to figure out where the good content is. So it's a content game. It's like good, engaging, valuable stuff. It's not about photo quality necessarily. Like photos matter on Instagram, but it is about like, is this content interesting, engaging? Are other people engaging with it? And then it looks at kind of interests, it looks at engagement, it looks at you like the relationship of that person with you, which you can build a relationship with your followers. Do that. I think that's the biggest mistake photographers do on Instagram is post and run away and like sit there hoping and feeling good or bad about themselves based on a number of likes they get, where like if you spend some time and have a strategy around who you're engaging with on Instagram, that's time much better spent. So anyway, Instagram, yeah. So how do you get more inquiries? Getting inquiries is like a multi-step process. One, you have to have those marketing channels working. You got to have SEO, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook ads, like 4 most effective marketing tools for elopement photographers. And then once those people find you, then it's like when the real work starts on your site, your brand, your message. What are those people seeing when they find you? Because you can have a lot of people find you and no one inquire if you are not communicating your value and how you're going to help them in building like that trust from the second that they stumble upon you. And like every single caption that you write could be the first point of contact that a couple sees with you. And it doesn't matter what photographers think about what you're putting on Instagram. It's like your clients, like that's how you get inquiries through Instagram. And is your site designed in a way that's easy to find the information that people are looking for? Is it easy to navigate? Can you find that contact button like easily? Is every single page guiding you to that contact form? And then, I've done a whole live video on contact forms and your initial inquiry emails. It's a dual process. You got to get the people to find you, and then you have to, with your digital marketing and your brand message, like suck those people in and get them to a point where they are ready to say, yeah, like I'm ready to learn more. I want to like actually contact this photographer. So there's a lot that goes into that. So one thing I wish I did differently at the beginning, wish I had known, but by beginning, I mean of your full-time elopement work. I wish I knew. Oh man, there's a lot of things. I've learned a lot in the last like 5 years of shooting elopements full time. That's a super good question. I'm gonna think about that and come back to that one. This may be a dumb question. Can you give tips on how to deal with jet lag, being your top performance the day after a flight, especially if there's a large time difference? 2 choices with jet lag. You can not sleep, or you can sleep like way more than normal. And so the not sleeping, I can say, tends to work better. It tends to work better if the day or two before, like really you can do it just the day before of like, 24 hours before your flight, look at your phone, see what time it is in the destination that you're going to, and force yourself to eat and sleep on that destination schedule. And that means oftentimes like staying up all night. And then, timing, I try to time it so that when I can stay up all night and then ideally like get on the plane, and that timing aligns with being able to sleep. And like sleeping on planes is hard for some people, but if you're super tired, works better. And so the quicker you can get your body sleeping and eating on the right schedule, like the way easier it is to deal with jet lag. And caffeine helps at the end of the day too. Suggestions for portable Wi-Fi options. So when I travel internationally for a long period of time, I pay a little bit extra on my phone plan to get high-speed data on my phone, and, the free texting and calling anywhere that I am in the world. So I'm in Iceland right now, so I am not at this second because I have decent Wi-Fi, but I have like run calls like this and run everything off of the hotspot on my phone, which is great because then my phone has really fast Wi-Fi and I can turn on a hotspot and use my computer, pull off the side of the road and do it in the car. I can, portable Wi-Fi, use the hotspot on my phone. When doing traveling elopements, how much time beforehand do you arrive at the location? Been struggling to figure this out because it adds more cost to the client for hotel room rental, but I don't want to ever miss a wedding. So rule of thumb, a good rule of thumb for me, and like there's been times that I've pushed this because I've needed to, but in general, I like 2 days between elopements in different countries and like 1 day between elopements in different states. And I can do back-to-back elopements in the same state normally. That's like kind of a general rule of thumb. So for an international elopement, the travel cost that is built into my pricing, which I have a whole different video on, is 3 nights hotel. So like you get in, you sleep a night, you have a day before the elopement, you sleep another night, you have the elopement day, and you sleep another night, and you can fly up the next day. So minimum 3 nights accommodation for international elopement. So yeah, the price is a bit more, but you should be rolling your travel fees into your pricing anyway, which is not going to mean your clients isn't going to feel like they're paying a whole lot more for you to travel there. Do you compete? How do you compete with photographers in your area shooting in illegal but epic areas that people go crazy for and using a drone in illegal areas? So this happens so much. And at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do to control how other people run their businesses and how ethical or unethical that they are being. Absolutely, like with the leave no trace stuff, it's important to, kindly talk to people about it and make sure that they at least they understand. Like some people are douches and will do it anyway, but there are a lot of people who do things unaware of how illegal they are. So it starts with a conversation, personal one, not like roasting someone, calling them out publicly. But I'd say like feeling like you need to compete with those people, they're not doing something that is sustainable and it will catch up with them eventually. I know photographers that, local photographers that make a habit of photographing illegal elopements in Rocky Mountain National Park, which is not going to work out long term. They're going to end up with a fine. They're going to end up with their permit taken off of them. They're going to end up not being able to work in the park at all. And that in long term is going to, is going to be bad for their business. And, there's very few couples who, are going to want to take that kind of risk on their elopement day. And if, so if you are talking to someone and saying, oh, well, this person shoots over there, like, yeah, they do shoot over there. And it's, if you want to run the risk of, having, being slapped with a fine of $500 per person for your elopement, and like the potentially, fines and like potentially being prosecuted for that, like federal trespassing, then yeah, you should hire that photographer. But I'm not willing to like jeopardize your elopement in that way. And so like my job is help you have the best experience, and like really getting a several $1,000 fine and a federal, being prosecuted for a federal crime would be like put a damper on your day. So I'm not going to do that. And yeah, I don't think it's like a competition issue. Those people aren't going to last. So you can't do anything to control them. So I would just leave it alone. Like, whew, like breathe it out. So let's see. There's so many good questions in here, guys. Oh, I'm definitely have to do a part 2 to this. Go back to this. One thing that I wish that I did differently. Man, I think that it is really scary to niche down. It is scary to brand yourself in a way that's really authentic to who you are. And like every time, every year, every couple of months, like I look at my site, I look at what we're doing, and I think I could be less fearful. I could be more true. I could be more authentic. you know, and the more that I've done that, the more I'm like, yeah, I wish I would have had the courage and the confidence to do that from the beginning, to really be able to be my full self and to not be so worried about what everyone else is doing. It's so easy to look at someone who appears to be doing successful and say, like, if I just do what they're doing, like, that's going to work for me too. And I hate to tell you, I don't hate to tell you, because you know, maybe someone needs to hear this. Like, that is not going to get you where you want to go. It just isn't. Like, I have not found any success personally looking at what anyone else in this industry has done and trying to do the same thing, ever. I have found success looking inwards, looking at myself, looking at my own passions, my own skills, my own talents. I have found success looking very closely at the people who I am serving and how I can serve them better. And I have found success looking outside of the photography industry and seeing how other businesses and other industries are coming up with creative ideas, ways to market and ways to brand and ways to be different. Those are the places that I have found like inspiration that has made me successful. And I really, really wish, I mean, I knew that when I started, and I've like made so many decisions based on that in, you know, the last 5, 10 years. I wish that I would have just been a little less fearful of going after that strategy and had the confidence to go whole hog like sooner, I would say. So, oh man, more amazing questions. Oh, number one tip for standing out in an overcrowded industry. Pretty sure what I just said is that don't look at other photographers. Do not copy other photographers. Don't see a marketing thing that another photographer is doing and repeat it and think that that's going to work for you. Look outside the industry, get inspiration from the people who you are serving, and look inside yourself. Like, photographers for a creative industry sometimes can be just like, like scarily uncreative with their marketing. Marketing is like such a huge creative opportunity. Like, you are a photographer, you're a problem solver. Like, you can figure so many cool things out in the moment when you're, you know, melding light and, you know, a couple in the moment and a pose and bringing it all together. And you can bring that same creativity and problem solving skills to your marketing if you really put yourself in the shoes of who your client is and what they need and how they need to be communicated with, and in what ways they're going to be interacting online, what they're going to be searching on Google, how they're going to be using Instagram. All the answers are there, and it's, you know, so many photographers. Yeah, that's what I would say. Like, don't look at other photographers and think that like what they're doing is the key secret. Like, you can figure it out, and marketing is a creative process that's really exciting once you understand like the basics of it, which is difficult. It seems overwhelming at first, but that's why I love teaching marketing, because it's such a fun game once you understand it. So I think the last one I'm going to be able to answer really quick before I head to the airport to get on a flight and go to Scotland. I heard you, that's my alarm telling me I need to go to the airport. I heard you do a great job getting couples to be vulnerable with each other in front of you by opening up the session with a brief discussion. Love to hear more about this process and how you start working towards this comfort with them before you show up to the shoot. Oh man, yeah, I love helping couples just feel so safe and free to be themselves on their elopement day. And this, you know, this style of you know, talking to couples, and like I have what I call this like magic spiel because it feels pretty magic that I give to couples like before we start taking portraits on their day, that sets their expectations, relieves any tension or stress, and like you can just see the anxiety like leave their body once you do this with a couple. It involves, you know, I started off with them just hugging. It's like, hey, you know, I have my cameras down. I say like, hey, like, we're just going to start this off. Like, I'm feeling kind of tense too. Can you two just like, you know, do me a favor real quick and just hug? Just, how do you guys hug? Just hug it out. I want you guys to hug until you feel all of the tension and the stress and the worry just melt out of your body. Hug until you feel completely relaxed. And I step back and I literally let them hug for a solid minute. And then I keep talking to them and I have them look into each other's eyes and I walk them through the process that's about to happen. I bring them into a place where they're feeling super present with each other. And like this spiel sets the whole tone for the shoot. It has been game changing for me, like through developing this process. I call it permission posing, which is kind of like permission marketing, if you've read that book by Seth Godin. And it's instead of posing strategy, which is like traditional posing, which is like traditional marketing, which is, you know, it is a little bit spammy in the sense of it's like, let me just throw pose idea after pose idea after pose idea and see what sticks. Permission posing is being intentional, a bit like, okay, the couple that you're working with is bringing like years of experience holding each other and kissing each other and being with each other already. They know how to do this. They don't need to be told how to pose. They need to be given permission to be themselves and to pose into, not pose, but to be. And so it is about asking for permission. Like, do you two hold hands when you walk together? Which hand do you hold? And you know, does he or she ever like come up behind you and give you a hug from behind? Or do they not ever do that? Like, noticing the natural interactions that are happening between the couple. Like, oh my God, did he just kiss your hand? Does he do that all the time? Like, that's so sweet. And you create this kind of mental Rolodex of posing cards in your head, but it is authentic and natural and genuine because you've asked for permission for every single one of those, or you've seen a couple do it naturally. So when you ask them to do it later, it automatically is genuine and normal and not like an uncomfortable, like, oh, it's not really us, but I don't really want to like tell a photographer that because like they're trying to get good photos of us and I guess we'll just go with it. I think being a super introvert and having been photographed by a photographer who was very famous for his set of posing cards and feeling like how scary that experience was and how just like, this is so not us. This is like this weird game of Simon Says that is just built on making like fake emotion. Like fake emotion is not real emotion. You can get reactions that photograph well, but what is the couple going to feel like when they look back at those photos? They're going to remember that you just asked them to do something super weird and that's why they laughed or they were uncomfortable, or, you know, like not all posing cards are bad. Like, don't get me wrong. It's better than like having no idea what to do on a photo shoot, but there's like a level beyond that of like posing in a way and directing a couple in a way that they're like really able to be themselves. So that's a whole like long topic, but essentially, yeah, like I love helping couples like, you know, developed a way to like help them really enjoy the moment and like be fully present with each other and focus on each other and not the camera and not me at all on their elopement day. And yeah, it works pretty well. So I'm gonna have to do part 2 of this Q&A, guys. But thanks so much for watching and love hanging out with you guys in the group. Hello from Iceland. And yeah, we'll have to do more of these. You have such good questions. Oh my gosh. And I know I'm kind of long-winded, so sorry about that. But talk to you guys later. Bye.